Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing on with my seasonal color series and we are going to be looking at light spring. If you're not familiar with seasonal color analysis is where we look at people's different features within their skin tone, their eye color, and their hair color. And then we look at the different levels of contrast between the different colors they have. And that will help place people into one of 4 seasons, which are going to be spring, summer, fall, or winter. And then we can break it down even further into the 12 seasonal color analysis. And each season is broken down into one of 3 sub-seasons. So for the spring season, which we're finishing up today, you have bright spring, which flows from winter to spring. You have true spring, and then the season that we're looking at today is light spring, which is in relation to the calendar year. That is going to be the end of spring, very much where we are right now, where spring is starting to get a little bit more hazy. It's getting a little bit warmer as we're flowing into the summer months. Light spring is the seasonal flow from true warm spring into the lighter, cooler, light summer color palette. If we look at the color palette and the dominant undertones they have, true or warm spring is a pure, warm, yellow, golden undertone season, with light summer being more of a neutral, cool season. And so that means light spring is going to be a flow or a graduation of those warmer colors into the cooler colors, which makes this a warm, neutral undertone season. The season that sits opposite of light spring in the seasonal flow chart is going to be soft or muted autumn. Soft or muted autumn, they share the warmer undertones. However, soft autumn has more of a touch of gray added to it. It has more of a smoky, dusty, or hazy appearance, whereas light spring really doesn't have a lot of that influence of those gray undertones. That's why when you're looking at light spring, a lot of the colors almost seem like kind of like a hazy watercolor or ombre effect of where you have one color flowing to another one, flowing into another one. The overall feeling of light spring is going to be a warm feeling with subtle, cool influences from summer. When we're looking at features, skin tones can range from fair all the way to dark, and there will normally be a more apparent, warmer undertone, so more golden, peachy, bronzy undertones within the individual skin tone. They might sometimes pull a little bit more neutral since there is that influence of the cooler summer season. So sometimes you'll have people with more of a purely neutral undertone, or they'll have a neutral warm undertone. Eye colors tend to be light and bright. They are quite striking, and that's a big feature within the spring season. So even with my eye color is a blue-green mix. But where my season is the soft summer, it's a little bit more hazy, it's a little bit more grayed out. You can't really see the graduation of colors from one color to the next. They all just kind of blend together. Light spring eyes, they are going to be very bright, very vivid, blues, greens, golden browns, even into those paler, honeyish versions of like a hazel eye. Hair color is light and bright. We have copper, golden blonde, golden brown, more of a strawberry blonde. When I was doing the research for this season, I ran into an issue that I ran into with doing the true spring, and that was I couldn't really find examples of non-white or non-Caucasian celebrity examples, and something about that didn't feel quite right to me. So I started searching, and I've got it on my list to pick up, but there is a book all about seasonal color, which I will have linked down below, for people of color, and I think that's wonderful. I can't wait to read it. But I did find in my research that someone had listed Alicia Keys, and they had almost like a case study showing her in different colors and how the light spring colors really work for her. So Alicia Keys, for this video, will be my person of color reference. The other celebrity examples I have are Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey, Prince Harry, and Taylor Swift. So all these people are going to be a little bit lighter. Their features will be brighter. Hair color, eye color can be light and bright. With all of the details about what is light spring, let's get into creating this light spring makeup look. Alrighty, I've already done my foundation and concealer off camera, so we can really focus on the color products for this look. Light Spring is a very warm and bright palette. However, the color palette is lacking an element of gray to it. So that means there's not a ton of contrast within the different colors. So a lot of times when you're looking at building a look, the colors will be more nuanced variations of each other. So to start creating a little bit of soft definition, I'm going to be using my Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Baked Powder in the shade 03 Bronze. Now, Light Spring, even though it is a warmer season, it does have the influence of light summer. So when you're bronzing, you want to make sure you're using something that has a nice translucency to it, and it also pulls a little bit more peachy. It's not going to be a strong orange bronzer or a strong yellow bronzer. Since you do have that element of coolness, it's going to pull a little bit more on the peachy side. So I'm going to very lightly use this just to create a soft, hazy veil of warmth on the perimeter. Since Light Spring is lacking in those grayer tones, it doesn't really lend itself to being an overly contour heavy season as far as your makeup looks go. And that's because contour, at least natural contours, are made up of shadows or shading on the skin. And shading is normally a color mixed in with a touch of gray to create more of a natural, realistic shadow or illusion of something sinking in or receding. So using a light bronzer, you can not go quite in your contour area, so not under the cheek, but slightly above that. Almost think about where you would apply your contour and then your bronzer or your blush, and go right in between those two spots. And that's where you're going to add your bronzer very lightly. When you've done your bronzer, you should barely notice it's there. And whatever you have left on your brush, take over any other exposed areas. Since Light Spring color palette has a little bit less saturation than the other ones, and that does make sense because it is flowing into summer, because our next season on the flowchart is going to be light summer. Sometimes it can be called muted summer. So that means we're going to have a lower level of contrast within our bright tonalities of spring. Keeping all of your layers, your placements very soft, very subtle, almost like a watercolor effect, where one color blends into another color, which blends into another color, which in the end blends into the overall skin tone. Everything just has a soft tonal variation. Now I'm going to use my L'Oreal Baked Blush and Brighten in the shade Ethereal Rose. It has a little bit of illumination, which is going to give me more of a highlighted effect, while giving me a little bit of a nuanced blushy shade. So I'm going to apply this right into my highlight areas. Since Light Spring doesn't lend itself too well to contouring, you can kind of do what we would call a reverse contour and use some of those lighter, brighter shades in your palette to highlight. So I am going to highlight the bridge of my nose, create more visual interest between the more kind of matte sides of my nose with the highlighted bridge of the nose, and that will create more illusion of shape. Similarly, we are highlighting the top of the cheekbone, which will reflect off the more kind of matte surface down here where we applied the bronzer, which will create more of a 3D effect. Now let's work in some blush, and with blush is where I'm going to throw the most contrast in. Staying within that neutral to warm palette, but playing off the influence of those cooler tones from Light Summer, I'm going to use a blush duo. This is from the brand 2AN, and this is the blush duo in the shade Love Rosy. I am going to start off with this lighter shade. I'm going to use that same brush. So with this shade, I want to really pop the apple of the cheek. So I'm going to start by slowly buffing on the apple of the cheek and working my way back. This placement should overlap our highlight and our bronzer. With a product like this, I like to take a little bit and create layers. And you can see here to here, we're just creating that nice gradient. So when I'm doing layers for blush or anything, I like to do 1 or 2 layers on one side, then go to the other side. Because if you build up the intensity here and you're not keeping track, it's very, very easy not have your sides mirror each other. So now I'm going to take the point of my brush and I'm going to work the 2 shades together. And I'm going to start with this shade more so in the middle of the cheek. And I'm gonna start from the middle and work my way back. So now I'm gonna use just the darker of the two shades or the brighter of the two shades. And I'm gonna take this right here in the very front of the cheek. Whatever's left, I'm gonna take right on the bridge of my nose, a little bit on the chin, and we'll whisper it through the forehead. It gives us the illusion of color, but we have that nice kind of gradient where you can't really tell where the bronzer is, where the highlight is, or where the different shades of blush are. They're all just kind of flowing together without turning muddy. Even though it's a very subtle look, there is beauty and a sense of artistry in knowing where to stop. For eyeshadow, I'm gonna be using a Nude Obsession palette from Huda Beauty. This is in light nude. So I'm gonna start off with my BK Beauty A502, and I am going to go into the lightest shade in the middle of the palette. I'm gonna wash this right over my eyelid. So I want to continue on with my mixing of colors. The mid-tone shade that I just used along with this pinky shade. I'm going to start with those right over the middle of my eye, working to the outer corner. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the pink shade by itself. And I'm going to keep this right here on the outer third of my eye. Even though it's very subtle, you're still starting to get that pop. Same thing on this side. Keep that darker color, just the outer third of the eye. Now I'm gonna take my ring finger and go into this more shimmery rose gold shade. And I'm gonna take that right on the center of my eye, pat right over the center, and then use my finger. If you want to, you can wipe it off a little bit and just use that to blend over. And that will just help give you like a nice kind of mirrored top coat to finish off the eye look. Now I want to add a little bit of depth at my upper lash line. So I'm going to take my IT Cosmetics Superhero No Tug Eyeliner, and this is in the shade Cosmic Copper. And I'm going to use this just to gently drag along my upper lash line. And we're touching the pencil and letting it kind of place and drag. And that's going to help you get a softer, more blended look without having to put in a lot of effort. This is the Morphe M165, and I'm going to take my brush into the darker shimmery side. And the trick with this is it's good to have an anchor. So anchor your elbow, place the brush right over the liner, and kind of little press, buff, and then drag. And then we can go through and drag and blend everything together. Then another fun thing you can do is take a little bit more of your shimmery color. If you want to add any type of like graphic liner shape, try doing it first with just your brush. And that will give you a little bit of something. It's gonna be very, very faint. These types of shimmers as a liner, they're not gonna give you a ton of punch, but they can give a little bit of something fun. When the sunlight hits you, you're going to pick up on that little bit of a bronze flick to the eye. Now let's go ahead and load up our lashes. You can use black mascara if you want to. I'm going to go with the brown. So I'm going to be using the CoverGirl Supersizers Fibers in the shade brown. And with this look, you want to make sure you're really getting right into the roots of the lashes. You need to almost bump the bristles against the root and then pull through. And that should just give you a little bit more depth right here on this outer corner. It's almost like creating a smoky liner effect just by using your mascara and a touch of liner. Now for the lips, let's have a little bit of fun with the lips and still keep that kind of soft gradient effect, but let's punch it up a little bit. So to get started with the lips, I'm gonna use a Peri Para ink, and this is Rosy Pink. More so on the very inner of the lips. And that's it, just a line on the lip, press it back and forth between your lips, let it bleed out, and then take a little eyeshadow brush. And we're gonna start blending back and forth to create a soft kind of gradient look. When creating a look like this, I really like using the more Korean or K-beauty lip stains because they give you a lot of spreadability. They're easy to blend out, but once they dry down, they really dry down. So when we're creating a layered look like this to create a gradient, adding little bits of color and blending it and then going back in, it's gonna let you get a really nice look, and it's gonna have some decent longevity compared to using a traditional lipstick, which will kind of wipe away and after as soon as you eat or drink. I'm gonna do a second layer, keeping it in the middle. And now I'm gonna go in for a third layer. This time I'm gonna keep it very, very tight. So just like that, the very center of the lip. And when I'm blotting my lips together, I'm not doing a large exaggerated drag and kind of smushing the color together. I'm kind of doing like more pop, and then that will help spread it a little bit. And then I take a brush. There we go. So now our lip has that nice gradient. And if you need to do any correcting or shaping to the lip, you can just use a lip pencil that's close to your natural lip color. I'm going to use this one from ColourPop. This is a lippy stick in the shade Another Round. Use that just to correct a little bit right there. And then just for good measure, take your brush, go right over it. Now we're gonna finish off with a little bit of gloss. This is the Fenty Gloss Bomb in the shade Sweet Mouth. And the trick with this is keep it right where you applied that last color. So now we have a pop of color on the lips, but the lip color is still playing in harmony with everything else we've worn. So the lip color is like a nuanced, slightly richer version of the blush that we have, which ties into that darker shade we used on the eye. The gloss is going to play into the highlighter and the shimmer on the eyes, and everything is just tonal variations of one and the other, but we're still creating a look that has fun and has vibrancy, and we can play with something like this where it's going to play off the color that you're wearing. So you're going to get a little bit more pop, a little bit more visual interest while still feeling in harmony with the look that you're creating. If you're someone who needs to definitely do something with the brows, I'm just going to take a little bit of my Refi Beauty brow pencil and just add a little bit of color here to the arch. And the reason I want to do this is because the Refi Beauty brow pencil, I have the shade Light. It's too warm for my brow color, but with creating these seasonal color looks, having something like this, which is a little bit warmer, will help just to balance out the illusion. So that is going to be my light spring look, which is a tonal variation on colors to create a soft, flowing, yet bright, warmer look. Perfect for anyone in the light spring category. If you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe so you will be here to catch the other videos in my seasonal color makeup series. The next video is going to kick off the summer seasons, which I'm excited about because my personal coloring falls into the summer season. So we are going to be doing light summer, and I cannot wait to see you all there. Take care of yourself wherever it is you are in the world, and I will see you later. Bye, y'all.